All right. Hello. Welcome. Double check my audio. It's good. Welcome to the, what's that? What do I call it? The Packet Bomb live stream experience. I'm your host, Kerry Rogers. We have a very exciting show for you today. We have, for the first time ever, a live special guest. You'll never guess who it is because it's not in the title of the live stream. Hopefully all the there will be no technical issues and it will go great, but we're gonna have a chat about, packets. Yeah, we'll talk about packets. We'll talk about Wireshark. We'll talk about networking, career, whatever else. Well, it'll be fun, and we'll certainly have some Q&A at the end if anyone has questions, would like to talk. I believe I met our guest, I want to say it was 2010 at Shark Fest for the first time, which I went into thinking I knew what I was talking about. Well, I mean, what am I going to learn? I'm here to teach these people. Well, I was wrong, and I basically kind of had my mind blown at Shark Fest, and Hansang Bae was one of the people who did that. So I see we've got some familiar faces in the chat. We are, starting a bit earlier in the day, at least here on the West Coast. So I'm glad to see some of our friends across the pond joining the live stream. So I think without further ado, we're going to get into it, have a chat. Please, everyone, put your hands together for Hansang Bae.
Thank you, everybody.
Here we are.
Thank you. Thank you, Kerry.
Yes, please. Please, everyone, stop. Please, hold your applause, please. Everyone, sit down. Sit down, please. Please sit down.
Enough.
That's good.
We have a show to do.
Yes. All right. How are you today on this beautiful Friday?
Good. Thank you, Kerry. And it's not General Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis, but all my life I wanted my title to be Supreme Commander Allied Forces, but nobody would give it to me. So, in namesake only.
Fair enough. Yes, the Supreme Commander of Allied Packet Forces.
Packet Forces, I like that.
Yeah, there we go. So as I was saying, I think I'm wearing the 2011 T-shirt. I couldn't find the 10, but I'm almost positive 2010 at Stanford.
That's right.
Does that sound right? Yeah. He was there a couple of years, I think. At Stanford, beautiful campus, coming from Mississippi boy, but living in New York City. Never seen a university campus quite like that. Being intimidated, a bit, not sure, knowing what to expect. But I did kind of think, because I was like the packet guy at work. I was the one that, coming from a sysadmin background and seeing how we were in tech support, manually counting the bytes and doing the connection forwarding protocol, some Riverbed proprietary protocols, didn't have a dissector, and so I spent a weekend and wrote one. And I was like, what are they going to teach me? not quite that, but I remember being in your session and just like so many things that maybe not so many, but some things maybe I'd kind of learned, but I could not articulate it in the way that you were doing, in front of everyone, and then just pointing out things in the packets, and as you went through your case studies, just like going, constant mind being blown. But I may not have. I think I didn't speak to you probably until the year, which may have been the second one, the 11. I made sure to go to your session again, and at the end, you announced you were joining Riverbed. And I think I went up and introduced myself.
And I think you had somebody from QA there as well. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Once I started letting people know that I'd done this little dissector work and started maybe looking at other things, engineering started popping their head up saying, oh, well, we have one. And, oh, this team has one. So I kind of handed off to the QA guy, and he pulled everyone's work together into like one unified version. So
I gotcha.
Yeah. So how did you end up, because I believe you've been to all of the Shark Fests, is that right?
I have, except for one, because Jerry, our old boss, pulled a last-minute all-hands meeting. So, and that was
right.
European one, first Europe one, I think.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so I missed that one, and then I missed another one because I had a voice box issue
Yeah.
So I missed two, I think, of all of them. So yeah, it's very enjoyable. And here's breaking news, folks. Carrie mentioned, when I go up there and explain things and articulate, I just make stuff up on the fly. So no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I think it's Carrie. You're one of these people. Jasper too. He's on the chat session. But there are people who are very technical and they're very good at what they do, but they can't teach to save their lives.
Sure.
They fumble. They don't know the words, or they don't know how to use analogies to make very complex topics easily understandable, bite-sized, so you can absorb it. And I think that's kind of unique in a technology field where there's a lot of good people. I use the term propeller head as a term of endearment.
Right.
But challenge yourselves, because if you have to teach, if you're on stage and you have to teach, you really have to know your stuff.
Yeah.
So you don't embarrass yourself. So I think it's a great motivator to go very, very deep, not be superficial. Don't be that iPad generation. Go deep to learn it, and then practice your public speaking skills by teaching.
Yeah.
So it's win-win-win.
No, there's been plenty of times where I'm pretty sure I understand something until I need to explain it. I go, oh, maybe I don't understand it as well as I thought I did, which kind of pushes me to go figure it out for real.
Yep.
So that I can explain it. So were you how did you come to know about it, or get involved in the community?
Yep. So I started long before there was Wireshark, actually, and even before Network General Sniffer. And there was a European or UK company that made a thing called Spider Analyzer, and I was working for Campus Computing. So this is actually kind of those seminal moments in your life. I had a choice to go work for Campus Computing for $3.25 an hour, I think it was, or they were looking for an engineering student to run a CNC machine for $8 an hour, if I remember,
right?
$8 or $9, which was phenomenal money for students back then. Little did I know, 30 years later, I'd be into CNC. But I said, no, networking, campus computing, that's what I want to do. I went there, and my boss, Steve, who ran the campus computing, said, hey, you know anything about Novell? I'm like, no. Well, here's a bunch of disks, go set it up. You know anything about Unix? I was like, yeah, I know Unix. He's like, okay, go maintain the Usenet servers and the DNS and the boot P.
Yeah.
And it was just trial by fire. University student jobs, and I don't know if that's still the case, but incredible learning experience.
That was true for me.
So on, right? And then one day I walked into Steve's office and I said, hey, what's that? And he said, it's a Spider Analyzer. I said, what does that do? And he said, I'm watching the packets. And I said, wow. So I started to picture the things that you always study about, right? The block diagram, 16 bytes of source, destination, port number, header. And it was not literally, but almost literally matrix moment of watching packets fly by wire. And it just completely sucked me in. And I jumped on it and I learned how to use it. And we had an incident about a stolen laptop. We were able to track it down using MAC address filters. Right. And that was, I guess, almost 30 years ago, and it just sucked me in.
Yeah.
And then I was, and I have Kristen to thank for this. Kristen, who used to work for me, she was awesome. I was a Network General Sniffer, not even the Windows version, the DOS version. I had those keystrokes memorized. I'd fly through those F5, F1, up arrow, and then I just saw Kristen next to me like, how'd you do that? And I was like, what is that? He's like, Wireshark. And I was like, I got Sniffer, man. I don't need that. And I just kept like, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? How'd you do that? And that's, I'm obsessed with optimizing everything that I do.
Right.
I don't want to take even when I'm in the kitchen making my coffee, I don't want to make multiple, I don't want to say round trips.
Cut down the latency of your coffee, right?
Yeah, because I want to make it as fast and most optimal way. And Wireshark did that Sniffer could never do. And then that was my second rabbit hole.
Right.
Right. And then from then on, it was all rooted in packet analysis, protocol analysis. But the UI, I always said this to vendors, make troubleshooting tools that get out of the troubleshooter's way. Don't impose a workflow on me. Let me identify the most optimal workflow and adapt to me. Right. And that's exactly what Wireshark did. So I fell in love.
So university, obviously I had a similar experience being a student sysadmin, and then working in the IT department was a great experience builder, which then led to the career in tech support that I've had. So when you went from there to what was after school, what built your I know you obviously I met you when you were at Citi running a performance team where you're in the weeds on packets. What was your path like to get there?
Okay, so let's talk about that, because I get this question fair about, right? I'm starting out. How do I get started? And back then, the answer was, for me, get on Usenet. Because while there was a lot of alt die Wesley
right
news groups,
there
was an alt binary. Let's not go there. But there was CompDCOM Cisco, there was CompDCOM LANs Ethernet, and these were where Rich Seifert, one of the original authors of DIC standard, Ethernet standard, hung out and answered questions. The guy from HP that wrote IP Perf, he hung out there. And I ended up spending probably hour and a half, 2 hours on Usenet for about a year, just sucking up. And what that did was it was a force multiplier. It gave me about 8 years of experience in troubleshooting just by helping people troubleshoot, because you're getting it, to the whole world of people who are asking technical, cogent questions. And but now, I don't know, Stack Exchange maybe.
Right.
There's Wireshark, Q&A. Gets a little repetitive though. And so I don't know if there's that experience, but cut your teeth on the foundation. Carrie and I were talking about this earlier. Don't expect that iPad experience of it's easy, answers right here. You have to understand the underlying technology. That means you have to know Ethernet. That means you have to read RFCs. You have to read Rich Seifert's Gigabit Ethernet book, for example. Or, there's a seminal book on Ethernet itself by Charles Spurgeon that you should read and understand. Then you have to read about TCP/IP, which is the next level up. And those are the books by Comer, by, the TCP/IP Illustrated, and including routing, the Doyle, the Kennedys of the world on the routing side, Radia Permans of the world. They go hand in hand. This packet analysis seems to be mostly network domain. So get deep in whatever you choose to study, and don't be superficial about it. And it's muscle memory, so you have to do a lot of it. So wherever you are, just open up a packet trace and see what it looks like, because over time, you'll know what it's like when you see it. It's hard to explain, but you know it when you see it.
Right. Yeah, I hang around a few places. There's the networking subreddit is got a lot of talented people in it. But I hang out on the Wireshark one as well, just to see if occasionally there's something good, but mostly it's kids wanting to know how to get IPs of people.
Homework questions answered.
No, not even that good. It's for like Call of Duty. How do I get the IP of the people in my chat or whatever? I guess so they can attack. I don't know what they want to do, to be honest, but that's
actually,
the level.
Kerry, believe it or not, back when Duke Nukem was the rage, which, by the way, I have my little, see if I can bring it to my little Duke Nukem.
Oh, look at that
statue there.
Hail to the king,
and that was a chewing bubblegum, kicking ass. He actually wanted to know how to do networking. Back then, it was with IPX ODI drivers and packet drivers, because Duke Nukem ran on IPX when it first came out. And then they went with packet drivers. So I had to teach him how to set up IPX stack. And he got so interested in doing that, he became a network administrator.
Hey, look at that.
So, hey, how about that, huh?
Yeah. So it's one thing I think about, at a large place like Citi, where you maybe have specialized teams that are responsible for one particular thing, there's people's work environments run the gamut. So some people, they don't want to take the time, or they want to push it off somewhere else, or like this is someone else's job. So in terms of, especially when people say if they're a network problem, and so many times, we look at this and it's not technically a network problem. So what are your thoughts on people, who owns these problems, TCP problems?
Yeah, so I think obviously the people who suffer are the consumers or the developers who get yelled at, along with networking. But I think as network folks, we own the sinew, we own the connectivity fabric of everything everything that we do in modern life. So we have a kind of a responsibility as shepherds, to help them troubleshoot. And I can't tell you how many times I would get a thing saying, "Hey, network is slow, please help." And then I would reply back and change the subject line and say, "Application is slow, I'll help you." And a couple of developers caught on to that and called me and said, "Hey, I see what you did there." But it's also because you don't know, we think of networks as this magical thing, and it is. I mean, Kerry, you're in San Francisco now. I'm in New York, and people down Jasper's in Germany, and God knows where everybody. Vlad's here, and here we are having a live conversation, and it's all because of network.
Yeah.
Of course, applications like even Skype, but I said that with a little disdain. But so Microsoft, if you're watching, I didn't mean that. It's just the UI's little hunk. But so. It's a fabric that holds everything together, and we're the only ones that can see it.
Yeah.
Now it's getting more and more challenging because TLS and encryption and cloud technology. Well, there was a question on that I'll get into in a second, but it's still at the fundamental level. The TCP is how the language of how the fabric works, and so we have a duty, a responsibility to help folks where there's either a TCP stack problem. That's a system administrator's function, right? That's not an application guy, but within the application, you can set buffers and whatnot, so that it's the union of all of that. So we have a duty to help.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. So, at your time, I've certainly heard tons of stories and case studies from SharkFest that you've presented, right? Real life stuff. When you think back your time in the trenches, what are some of the ones that just kind of pop to mind, some of those funs?
There's so many too. I'll see if I can in real time anonymize some of this.
Okay.
First one is actually don't jump to conclusions, because if it's too easy, you'll probably get burnt.
Yeah.
And so there's two factors to that. One is just technology wise, it may be leading you down the wrong path. Again, experience is what saves you from making that mistake. The other one is, not being humble, but being too defensive with your team. So it's a funny story. I'll tell you. We did a study on a vendor. I'm going to change the name. They're a credit card module used by the consumer bank side, and it's a dispute module, meaning when customers dispute the charge, they use this application to make note of it. Back out the charges and whatnot. So the application is called Dispute. So the company, I'll just make up a name, Pegasus. Let's say Pegasus. There was a slowness issue. So my team and I got engaged. I think it was either Malesh or Tom, maybe it was Sandy, who worked on that, wrote a report. I looked it over, makes perfect sense. Send it off to the developers. And I get this from the PM, I get this email saying, Pegasus. No, what did I say?
Dispute in Pegasus.
Yeah. So, the subject says Pegasus disputes finding. That was a meeting title.
Yeah.
So I was CC'd on it because I don't think I was leading on it, and I just saw that and I went, "What? What are they disputing? It's black and white, right?" And I thought, okay, I'm gonna get on this call. I'm gonna show them what's what. It's black and white. Packets don't lie. So I get on the call with an attitude because, it was my team. I need to defend them. I get on the call and everybody's, "Oh, Hansang, nice to, thanks for joining." I said, "No problem. So what's the dispute?" I got right down to business, kind of channeling the New Yorker. And they said, "Yes, the dispute." I said, "Yeah, what is it?"
Who's on first?
And he goes, "Yeah, we're here to talk about Pegasus disputes finding." And I said, "I know. What is the dispute of finding?" And everybody was quiet. And then the PM goes, "Hansang," he goes, we're here to talk about the module application Pegasus dispute, the finding that your team wrote. And I was like, what? Anyway, so don't jump to conclusion.
Yeah.
But I guess the good one I was kind of happy was Citibank. They had this app, click, image, check, deposit. It was brand new at the time, and 6 days before go live, the team came to me and said, nothing works. This is too slow. Something's wrong with the network. And I was like, ooh. So we jumped on it, and it was actually a third-party service, a B2B connection, where their application was not optimized.
Right.
And it was a combination of ODBC buffer size, and also TCP window size. So both needed to be adjusted. And once we did that, the check deposit times were fine. Yeah. And we caught that about 6 days before go live.
Wow.
We found one with equities, global fixed income. Before they went to algorithmic trading, we found a TCP delay. They were getting murdered. And so the BUs were very, very happy about things like that. So there's a lot of things like that, and others that I can't talk about because it's still
right. You'd have to kill everyone on here. Yeah. So, like when you are presented with a problem and you've got the data, walk us through your basic process. I assume there's some commonalities, right, across whatever the issue is. You're going to do some of the same things every time, and then that leads you down different paths based on what you found. So walk us through what that kind of looks like.
Yeah. So never trust the timestamps of what they tell you. So in the military, we use GMT for a reason, because you don't want to start the attack and find out, oh, wrong time zone, damn, right? So it's bad. That's bad, right? Time on target. It's very important that everything is synchronized. So I had one instance where someone sent me this trace. They said this right here during this 10-minute was a problem. I made a cursory look through my checklist of the usual stuff, right? Long delays, application size, buffer tearing, all the things that I usually talk about on SharkFest. I didn't see anything. There was nothing there. And I thought, what am I missing? So it kind of intrigued me because it wasn't apparent, right? So by now I've seen a lot of problems. I can triage it very quickly. Easy problem, medium, interesting, or really, really hard. I should take some time to look at this. And there was none of those. I couldn't figure it out. And then I finally called ops and said, dude, I don't see anything here. What am I missing? Describe the problem to me. And I realized the generic word sniffer that we were using at the time wasn't set to GMT like it was supposed to be. So start with the actual time that it was captured, so you know that you're troubleshooting the right thing. Start with that.
Yeah.
Right. Number 2 is go through your TCP checklist and develop that workflow. So if you don't know what that workflow checklist looks like, attend the SharkFest sessions, because a lot of people here, you included, Carrie and Vlad and Jasper and others, they help you develop that checklist. Don't use ours. Use the one that makes sense to you, but use it based on all the work that Carrie, myself, folks like Jasper's, Christians of the world have developed, and start there. So have a pre-flight checklist. Airline pilots and fighter pilots use it for a reason, and go down it, because the one time you skip over something, Murphy's going to get you, and that probably is a problem.
Yeah, okay. I think some of my actually one of the ones I just did recently on, I think, did I do a live stream? I think it was a live stream. It was someone, it was actually Call of Duty. He kept getting kicked off, disconnected, and so I went through the whole analysis, and I found the problem was a duplicate IP. Some other device was sending gratuitous ARPs. And if you click the easy button in the bottom left corner of Wireshark, there it is right there in the expert analysis or whatever, it tells you duplicate IP. So I went the long way around, but because I just kind of skipped over the basic step. I think you like to put, was it TCP analysis flags as one of your...
Yeah, I do.
Make a button, click it, show you everything.
That's right. And just scroll down and absorb it, and let your, there's a lot of benefit to machine learning AI, but the one thing that humans are very, very good at is looking at slight changes and variation of what you're seeing. So that's what you need to develop. It comes through practice.
So let's talk about that. I get people, I'm a public person about packet analysis. I encourage people to reach out. Happy to help. Maybe it turns into a case study or whatever. And I run into people who are truly, and I imagine most of the people on this stream have an interest in this, are interested in learning the art and science of this. Mm-hmm. But he's certainly come across people who really are only interested in getting from A to B as fast as possible. Give me the answer. I'm not that interested in the details in the process. Whereas that's why my videos may be a lot longer than other people's sometimes, because to me, the process is where all the good stuff is. So what do you think helps develop that? Or what sort of makes someone has that skill, or who can develop that skill of learning the process better?
I think it takes an aha moment. So if you're starting out, you need that one aha moment to get you hooked, because it's fun, and you found something. It's actually like my other passion, woodworking. When you make something, people go, "Oh, where'd you get that?" "I made it." And people go, "You made that?" Because it's not a common skill, right? Packet analysis, troubleshooting is the same thing. So when you find things, people go, "Oh, how'd you find that?" And then when you start talking, they're like, "Yeah, whatever. Just you give me the answers." So I think that as a troubleshooter, you need to have that aha. You need to be inquisitive. You need to be optimized, OCD focused, because why troubleshoot if you're not going to troubleshoot if you don't want optimization, right? Because if it's not fast and you're okay with it, you're okay with it. You would never troubleshoot. But if it's just a slightly slow, you have to start asking, why is that slow? Why did it do that? So that aha moment, and you have to be addicted to the word why, and just keep asking, why is that? Why is that? And never accept an answer unless you truly understand it. Because if you do, you're going to just parrot that one scenario, and the minute that focus is off, you'll never know, right? Because you've only did this and you don't really know. So if you keep asking why, and I'm going to go back to and maybe a lot of people here, when you're taking calculus, differential, Fourier's of the world, if you just parrot the teacher, and when they're doing it, you're sitting back like, that's easy, I got it. And then when you get your first test exam, you're like, ooh, what is this?
Can you apply it?
And then don't be that guy calculating your GPA based on getting an F on this exam, right? Because a lot of people end up doing that. I'm going to flunk this one, so what's my GPA going to nosedive to? So understand the underlying foundation so that you can build up on that tool set that we talked about earlier.
I think, my general opinion, I guess, philosophy is that there are just certain types of people that this appeals to, and there are certain types of people who it doesn't. And that's fine. We're all different things interest us, Obviously there's a pretty decent community around who enjoy this type of stuff, but when I do come across the folks that they're in a tight spot, they've got a pain point they're trying to solve, but they just don't care really, other than to solve it. If I can help, fine, but I will spend hours and hours of my free time helping someone who's interested in learning that in the process along the way. Because if you help, the teach a person the fish kind of mentality, I guess. And I call that tech ESP.
And so I have this thing about good or bad, I snap judge people instantly. And since I'm never wrong, I've never had to, about that. I'm not never wrong. I'm constantly wrong. But when it comes to snap judgment, especially the tech ESP, I've never been wrong. I've actually hired people who were on a troubleshooting call, didn't know what questions to ask, but they immediately went down the right path because they were inquisitive. So technology, you can teach. That ESP and ethics, you cannot. So I actually, when I used to interview people for my team or network engineering in general, we start with a written question, 120 questions of none of this stupid, bogus tech questions of, what's the 18th bit of an IP header? Like, who cares? But I've had those questions where I go, why do I need to know that? I can just look it up now in an RFC. That's why it was written. But these kind of like logic, like troubleshooting questions, and you can always find the troubleshooter because even if they don't know how to solve it, they ask the right questions.
Right.
I would ask for this, I would look for this, I would look for this, I would look for that.
Yeah.
So that's at Tech ESP. And someone mentioned, what do you guys study? Everything related to packets and IP. It changes every year. There's,
right.
TLS is right around the corner. You should know about TLS and how it works. You should know how certificates work and exchange, how certificates are exchanged, and what certificate or key pinning means to troubleshooters. So you should add Fiddler to your tool set, to your arsenal of tool set, because Fiddler gives you the visual representation and the JSONs and the graphical part of what you're looking at from the packet. So
right.
get used to Fiddler, because they go hand in hand, especially in a TLS world. The other thing is, go back to articles, go back to papers, go back to RFCs, so that you can really, really understand it. And every time you read it, it's like watching a really, really funny comedy movie. You always catch a joke that you didn't catch.
Yeah.
So constantly rereading things, Googling things is important. And the one other thing I'll say is, someone asked, Microsoft says in this cloud world, you don't really need to be technical, which is somewhat true. So the automation of cloud makes things easier because you don't need the brunt workforce to set things up.
Right.
But troubleshooting is not about when things work.
Right. There you go.
The only time things go wrong is when they go wrong. All hell breaks loose when something goes wrong. And then those automation technologies cannot help you. It can help you migrate workloads. It can help you kill containers and bring them up. And Anthoses of the world, Kubernetes of the world, service meshes of the world do a very fine job of that. But ultimately, to troubleshoot, you need somebody who understands it.
Right.
So
that's I was interviewing, for new tech support engineers, troubleshooters, network type folks. You obviously you need to have some base knowledge about answer the trivia question, the Google answers, right? As long as you know a little bit, that's fine. But if you miss some, that's okay. But if you do well enough to get a second round interview, the key to me was, I'm going to ask some of the same questions, and you better get them right this time, because now you know what I was looking for the first time. This, you're doing a phone screen with someone, you don't exactly know what they're going to ask you. You read the job description. That's what else do you know? Now you know what they're looking for, so you go and you study. And if you do better, you nail the ones you missed the first time, you get a check from me. But if you miss other ones, I'm not concerned. But going back to the troubleshooting, it's a huge mistake to only quiz people on their trivia and not do troubleshooting scenarios. So if you folks are out there, if you're hiring or you're interviewing, I'm much more interested in how you handle yourself and how your process. We want you to think out loud. If you don't know the answer, that's fine, but are you asking the right questions? We've had people get so frustrated they storm out of the interview, or people who nail all the details but they couldn't troubleshoot themselves, out of a wet paper bag.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so I know people have asked about it. Why don't we start talking? You've talked about a TCP course, I believe, in February. It's now, what time is it? So I know there's been things going on in the world, supposedly.
Has there?
You've been building bookshelves or something.
I've been heads down, Kerry. I've been heads down.
So let's hear an update on the plan and where we're at.
Sure. So it's actually a question that came up. How is the video quality really good? Well, it's because Kerry and I are so good looking.
Well,
that helps.
That's true.
That goes without saying, I think. No, it's a camera that we have. So I have a Sony camera. I think Kerry and I, we watched the same DLSR video guy who said, hey, use this rig if you want to be live streaming. So it's the lens, or the glass, as the people in the know, the cool kids say. The glass is important. High bandwidth, obviously, and software that Kerry's using to live stream. But it took a long time to get this. So I'll give you an example. So I'm going to switch my video source. right now, live.
Ooh, fancy.
And you can see me writing, right? 2020'd. Right? I got 2020'd.
Yeah.
That's a new word. You guys can use it. Just make sure you put air quote trademark Hansang.
Right.
So why did I do that video switching? So I have this little ATEM unit that allows me to switch from 4 different computers, because when I'm going to go into training, I have to draw things, write things, show you a trace here, show you a diagram here, and maybe have a technical reference here. And to do that on one screen is, and you record it, it's a lot of post work.
Yeah.
You know, by post, I mean editing the video. So you don't have the luxury of it being live, where whatever happens in post. So I had to learn Audition and DaVinci Resolve to get my sound level right. So it turns a thing called LUFS, loudness normalization, 16 and 23 being the standards. And this is that OCD nature of a troubleshooter.
Yes.
If I'm going to do something, I might as well do it right. So I need the right camera, I need the right microphone, and then I went down the rat hole of why are microphones different, and why do they sound different, and how do I optimize that? That took some time. Took me some time to order this ATEM unit, because apparently the whole world went to video Zoom broadcasting.
Yes.
And I couldn't get a hold of this unit. And knowing me, being optimization freak, if it took me 5-6 hours to edit a post, knowing there's a much better way to do it, I'd be inclined to say, this sucks, right? So I had to wait for all that to show up. Once it showed up, I had to learn how to do the noise canceling in post work for audio. That's important. How to boost it how to do gating. So that took a long time. And so I've mastered Audition. I've mastered DaVinci Resolve. I got my whole studio set up here. I had to build my sound panels to deaden the sound. That's very important. Yeah. So there, my woodworking skills came in a little handy, because I was able to make my own panel, right? So yes, it's kind of OCD.
So the answer is you Hansanged it. You went down the rabbit hole on every topic there is about AV production. I did. But now you're an expert and you're ready, right? So
I'm ready.
All right.
So we're gonna start this Tuesday.
Hey.
TCP Tuesday or TCP Thursday. So I'll be putting out regular cadence, and it'll be, remember, Jasper always makes fun of me because it's like, oh, this is a beginner course, and then sometimes I go to not so beginner topics. I get carried away. So I'm gonna pace myself, and I'm going to start with the very basics, the foundational stuff, because what I found, Carrie, is that especially when you said, people who just want the answers, they miss the forest for the trees. It really is that use case where because they don't have the underlying foundation, they know something that you taught them. Oh, if I do ABC, I get the answer. But the minute it's ABD, they're lost. Right. So I want to build up that foundation. So for some of you guys, it might be very boring and you're dismissed. You don't have to watch it. But hopefully I can make it entertaining enough. I can help tell a story, because remember, this is how our brain works. I went down the rabbit hole there too. People remember books and movies that they watched and saw from years ago. They don't remember a table or something they had to memorize from a week ago, because story, it becomes a multi-core operation, and you remember it into your long-term memory better. So hopefully I can tell stories, analogies, make it funny, and build that foundation. So we'll start slow, and then we'll start taking. I have thousands of traces that I've kept over the years. I may go through every one of them. Who knows, right? So depending on how this training course goes, we'll hit every one of those.
Okay. Well, you heard it here, folks. Next week, this thing kicks off, and if you don't hear from him, then you have to just badger him, I guess. I don't know. we are ready. I see several comments about the sync. Yeah, so this is the first time we've done this. I certainly noticed, in my view, a little bit of audio sync. We'll figure it out for next time. Okay. That
was on me because I used an external microphone not connected to my camera. and then the camera to HDMI to Skype, there's a little delay in HDMI processing. So that's 100% on me. Next time, I'll put my phone to the camera, so HDMI syncs up.
If I look at the Skype itself, I think it's okay. I think it's something about the import into OBS. I'll have to do another video for you guys on how we accomplished the technical part of this.
Or think of it as watching like an old kung fu movie where the
yes. So in the description of this live stream, you should see Hansang's channel. Just click on that and subscribe to his channel. That's where the course is going to be, right? On your YouTube channel.
That's right. And the only thing I would say is I may show some DeWalt table saw operation optimization there, but it's troubleshooting. Yeah. So things aren't working right. So it's a troubleshooter's channel. So you might see some CNC and VR flight simulator stuff, but mostly TCP Tuesday and Thursdays will be packet related.
Great. Absolutely. Perfect. Okay. So we're about 45 in. How about if anyone has questions, they are topics of discussion that we could tackle in the last little bit here. I'll scroll through the chat that we've had so far, but please go ahead and drop something in the chat. I think I mentioned on a previous one, I've got my stack of books under my desk here, and I'm gonna figure out a way to do giveaways on a future live stream. I did start researching it, and like you have to adhere to state, local, and federal contest laws.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So I'm like, oh boy, can't I just like make this easy and spin a wheel? But We'll see. So some of the books that Hansang has talked about, TCP/IP, Illustrated, etc. I'll be giving those away.
Okay. And Kerry, there's one question actually I think we touched on here. With everything being encrypted, you're right. TLS 1.3 has PFS and other technologies that make you ethereal, ephemeral keys and whatnot. So that's where the fiddler part comes in. But here's the thing. Even without looking at the application, when you're talking about performance issues, there's a lot from TCP that can be gathered, right? So TCP will probably get you 60, 70% of the way to say, I think this system or this conversation pair is causing the overall slowness. And you can actually use size of the TCP payload and TCP headers to help developers say, hey, I notice a pattern here where you're not sending out more than 64K. So do you have a 64K buffer in your application?
Right.
And so those are some of the techniques that I don't know if they're advanced techniques, maybe somewhere between middle and advanced. So there's a lot of TCP can help you. So think of TCP as a buzzsaw. To help you get into the right area, and then get your scalpel out, and that's the fiddlers of the world to help you get to the final hump.
I see Simon has joined. I met Simon through a case study that he reached out to me, and it was this issue. It was a Tomcat server download that was poor performance, and it was send buffer size on the application, delayed ACK, and then some weird Microsoft, I don't know if it's a bug or whatever, but if you go look at my case studies, you'll see one about Tomcat, and that's Simon and I went back and forth on that for quite a bit. I think I was able to reproduce it in AWS. That was a fun one. All right, what else we got?
I just wanted a melee discount from Simon, but that never happened.
Yeah, so. It's too late now.
Too late now. Nice, Simon.
What else? So we talked about, encrypted. In it for the book solely. I have water and coffee, I'm afraid. That's all I've got. It's still a little early, I suppose, for anything else. So what's this question about cloud networking, form of IP or IP MAC?
Oh yeah, IP and IP, yeah. So I think this is one thing that you should study up on is network services header. it's going to a lot of orchestration, a lot of vendors use network services header now. There was two different back in not too long ago. There was two different standards for network services header. Now they combined, and there is one unified standard. Learn how type length values in network services header can be used, and it's very much like IP and IP or VXLAN technologies of the world. And so again, that's another opportunity. That's why someone said, "What do you guys read?" Well, NSH, RFCs, for example. So, if you don't like reading, if you don't like learning, you're in the wrong profession.
You have a stack of RFCs next to your bed for some bedtime reading.
You know what? I'll say this. So this is my little guilty pleasure. I'm never more than an arm's length away from this, but it's mostly just fiction.
Well.
So my getaway.
I hear that. I have a question. UDP performance is fine. TCP performance is really poor. So yeah, talk about people say, well, I do UDP or I do whatever test and the throughput's fine, but when we do this test with TCP, there's a problem. What are the common things you think people should look at for those issues?
Yeah, so immediately top of mind is you don't have a bandwidth issue perhaps because UDP is blasting it, but look for any kind of retransmission events, retransmission timeout for multiple losses. So TCP really suffers when there are multiple passes in the same TCP window size because it collapses even with the newer stacks. So I would look for retransmission timeouts. The other one that I would look at is, Carrie, I think you wrote this. There is a new field under TCP analysis, sequence analysis field. If you open that up, you can see number of bytes between pushes.
Yes.
And so if you chart that, you might see that number never gets above 64, 128, 256. These boundary numbers, right? 512 and whatnot. So chart that out and see if there's a plateauing, because that's controlled by the application for the most part. And obviously, you have to worry about TCP window size exhaustion, but those are pretty simple to identify.
Yeah.
And probably too deep to go into it now, but those are the things that come top of mind.
All right. Okay. And, tune in next week when the TCP course kicks off.
That's right.
Yeah, I wrote that bit when I was looking at the case study with Simon. I was like, okay, there's got to be a pattern, but it's hard to find. So hacked that
Visualizations, Visualizations.
Yeah. And I submitted 2 patches. That one got approved, because I'm not a coder. I know enough to be dangerous. And the other one, again, trying to find a pattern was how many segments is each acking, because it wasn't always consistent. It wasn't like 2. It was varying, and I was trying to find a pattern, but that was really difficult to figure out. So I wrote a patch for that, but it had too many bugs in it, so they kicked it back.
I see. And by the way, KK, you asked. Yes, there are newer stacks that are coming out. Not all of them take hold because, the old joke about God created the heavens in 7 days because there was no installed base. Think how many desktops are out there, right?
Yeah,
So it's a hard problem to say, oh, I have a brand new. However, having said that, Google has some of luxury of doing this with Quick and whatnot because they own the Chrome browser. So they can modify it from there. So, so it is important to keep up. And Vlad, actually, he's in the chat here, did a session a couple of years back. So go back to retrospective European SharkFest sessions. He did a session on congestion algorithm on multiple stacks, and it's it'll be eye-opening about how it reaches quiescent time and whatnot. So look into that. But yes, you must keep up with the stacks.
Yeah.
Not all of them, because not all stacks. A lot of them are academic only.
Right. They are changing pretty consistently. Any thoughts on Quick protocol?
So I think there's a part of me that's against it. There's part of me because it's not fair. But then maybe it's okay. I don't know. But I don't want to get canceled, so I can't really say what I want to say. I'm kidding. Kind of. No, so but again, these are, so remember, we had an era where long fed network was a big problem. We've kind of gone past that now. Most operating systems have gone past long fed networks now. But some of the fundamental TCP problems of applications' inability to use it is still there. So again, build up your portfolio and don't bother with quick if you don't understand what window collapsing means, what TCP versus UDP behavior means, etc. So again, build up the foundation, and the newer technologies are incremental changes because the fundamentals are still there. So that's how I would tackle it.
Okay. All right. How about last one? Here is any time spent using Transom APDU or opinion on its effectiveness?
No, so I don't know which PDU that is for. I haven't used Transom. I might have from a packet perspective, but I'm not familiar with that one, so I couldn't.
Okay. Fair enough. Andrew, SMB, please reach out to me. I am currently looking for SMB case studies, so reach out. We'll talk. Okay.
And don't forget, SMB has two different windows. There's a different read versus write window.
Yep.
And if you do it within Office, it's different behavior than when you do it from Windows Explorer. So be consistent in how you test that.
Yeah, that's fun protocol there. All right. So I hope everyone enjoyed this. Hansang, thank you so much for giving us your time. I'm sure everyone is looking forward to next week. So if other than your YouTube channel, anywhere people should find you, social medias or any LinkedIn's or
no more
else?
Twitter. So just LinkedIn. LinkedIn would be best. Email, hansang@gmail. You'd be surprised how many people don't contact me asking for help. It's okay. I mean, I can't help everybody, obviously, but don't feel like, he won't. I do my best to respond to everything. So, and one other thing, if anybody's watching this later, if you comment on my video, if you don't use @ and the time to ask that question, I'm not going to answer it, because some of these traces are years old, and you go, oh, packet 7, why did that happen? And you go, and I'm like, I don't know. I have to troubleshoot that. So always give me context about what it is that you saw. Help me to help you, not to be cliche about it. And then, so just help me to help you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So
more
YouTube comments,
better. Okay.
Gmail, and LinkedIn.
Yeah. There we go. You heard it here. All right, everyone, thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed this. I see some people in the chat that I would love to bring on here for a future conversation. This video it's basically recording right now, and it'll be on the channel so people can rewatch. Hansang's link is in the description, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you.
Thank you.